All right, everyone. 3.4 is out, and man, I had previously heard some of Tano's calls that he had said 3.4 was supposed to be sort of a minor change, but this is actually a pretty big change. A lot is happening in 3.4. It's a huge change, and we're going to talk about that. Not that I don't mind it, because I would say so. I would just say it this way: there's a lot of stuff is changing, and I don't want to talk about anything necessarily from a balance perspective because point changes are happening, rule changes are happening. So there's a lot changing in 3.4, and I don't know what is necessarily good or bad from a balance perspective. I'm just going to give sort of my initial thoughts and sort of leave it at that. This is on their website. I do advise here. So he did mention on his call that he's going to take about a month to collect feedback on 3.4 and maybe make some changes or tweaks. So if you see anything, hey, go check out the rules. After that, apparently he wants to close 3.4 for another year. And I don't mind it. The yearly updates are going to be good. He does mention that he does eventually want to move. He mentions that 3.4 weeks is going to be a test in progress. So just keep that in mind. But basically, after this 3 to 4 week period, he's going to close out the rules and they're going to be set for about a year. Yeah, I think it's good. It is going to, he mentioned something about supporting physical versions of rulebooks. Now, I'm not a physical version guy, but I could see eventually them wanting to sell some of their products in stores. And I think it is a good thing to have a rulebook that people can buy and it'll last a year. So, plus, I just think the rules being in a good state for a year is going to be solid. There is a lot to cover, so let's just get into it. So, yeah, I'm just going to start going through here, and we're going to start talking about it here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the advanced rules. And all right, so the first section I think we're going to cover, and this there's like so just so you know there is a lot. There's the advanced rulebooks have just so much things going on here that I think is so great. So the first thing he's going into is that he has added some now what's called these terrain generators for three different sort of what he calls these biomes. So for Age of Fantasy, and Grimdark Future, this is sort of supporting the lore because in those world books, in Age of Fantasy, you have these things called planes, and on the Grimdark Future, there's these planets. And no, again, I can't show you any of the advanced rules. I can only sort of talk about them, and I don't want to spend too much time into each detail. Because I do want you to. It is paid content, and I think that you should go check it out on your own and purchase this. I will say that they're really cool how all of these are based off like whether you're in a certain sort of so for Age of Fantasy it's based off the plane, that if you're in a certain sort of plane that you can roll on some tables and you basically can get certain benefits based on whether it's in hospital terrains or generic, or like they also have like void planes. That's pretty cool as well. So they've also added some different army terrain types. The army terrains I think are super cool, and this is basically you get like one or two armies, and you basically roll off, and you get each army. You get these pieces of terrain that gives you bonuses to your, to give you bonuses to your army. And I won't go into them. It's worth checking out. I would say this, that I think the army terrain is a really cool way. It's adding so much to the game. Then you've got some new deployment styles, 12 new ones. And actually, I really like these new deployment styles. Some of them are, again, I want you to go check out the book, but I would say the new deployment styles, they're worth it. Go check them out. The new extra, so they actually new extra missions, and the extra missions I think are pretty good. I don't think that they're nothing amazing, but they're solid. There are some solid new missions that I think are worth it. What I think are what are a lot cooler is the new side missions. The new side missions I think are really good. Basically how they work is you play with a standard game where you have objectives, and then you can add these side missions into the game to give you bonus points for every time. So in other words, you're not just scoring the game by objectives. You get these side missions which you can run to, and to me, the side missions I think are huge because they make it so much easier. You play the base game where you have your D3 plus 2 objectives, and then you can just add in these little side missions so that you have another way of gaining victory points, which I think is super good. Really cool. Okay, action boostings are really cool. I've read through them. I don't want to go a lot into them, but I would say this. I really love I love the action boostings. So one of the coolest things about the action boosting is actually it has an underdog way of playing. So an underdog, if you so this is based off progressive scoring because remember some of these new mission types you're actually going to get progressive scoring in there, and what they're doing is that as throughout the turns people are gaining points at the start of the turn. If you have less points than your opponent, you actually get an extra. So every turn, everyone gets one of these boost points. But if you're an underdog, you actually get 2 boost points. Now I am a big thing. I would love to see some more underdog mechanics in this game, and action boosting is a great way to provide that extra boost point for if you're behind. Well, it's a great way, especially for casual games or for fun games, to keep people in the game. You don't want to play a game and then you get behind, you just can't win. So I love that action boosting is adding some underdog mechanics. Super cool. All right. Hero and monster feats are so cool. I think this is great. It's basically, one of the things that I really love that we're going to get into this, and we're going to get into the weapons as well, and the magic items. This is starting to feel a lot more like 40K, sort of old world, where you're basically able to pick. You're able to basically you get these different feats that once per game you can cast, and to me it really makes heroes feel a lot more heroic. And this is something that I've tried to do in my own custom armies. Make heroes very powerful, but make it so that your opponent really wants to prioritize them. Because honestly, that's really what a battlefield should be. I love that a lot of these changes are about making heroes more powerful and more flavorful, but it's also making them more of a target for the enemy. And I think that's really cool. So the heroic and monster feats I think are wonderful. They're a great addition. I won't go into them. I'll just say awesome. I love them. Okay, let's get into this is probably my favorite change, and that is the advanced spellcasting. Oh my goodness. I think the advanced spellcasting is probably my favorite addition. In fact, I want to use this over regular spellcasting. This, currently the casting is just based off 1 dice. The advanced spellcasting now, you roll multiple dice and you're trying to get 4-ups to meet the casting value. And you can add dice and subtract dice. I love the idea of rolling multiple dice. I love that casting is not just this 1 dice roll now, but they've also added in magic. So they've made magic pools and spell books to add some additional spells. They also have a miscast table so that if you roll, I would just say this: the advanced cast, it feels a lot like Warhammer 8th edition. But you're not adding the dice together. You're just trying to get 4-ups. But then they have a miscast table and magic pools. I actually think this wins of power, this new casting. I prefer this. I want to play it, but initially, I like it more than the original cast system. So this, to me, the advanced casting, I'm just going to say, is probably my best part that I like. The living spells, these are template spells now that are really cool. So one, I love that there is now a reason to bring casters, and you can get some of these new spells that actually remain in play. They actually have templates that they talk about as well. Super cool. I will tell you, for me, a personal favorite right now is the new caster rules and the living spell rules, especially for Age of Fantasy. It's really going to make Magic more powerful. And I don't know. I'm not talking about balance, but I think that I really am looking forward to trying this new system. All right, magic items. They've added in magic items. Let's just say, you get to roll them. So they have different ways you can pick them. You can pick one or limited or it's randomized. The point is that these magic items are effectively what they're doing in 40K, where you get to, pick a number of war gear items for your leaders. I love the idea of making these leaders more powerful. That to me is really great, that I think that OPR has been missing, and that is having heroes be a lot more heroic. You can add in these feats to them. You can give them magic items. Now you can give them spells. Like, this is really cool. Really like this as well. And again, maybe I don't know how powerful or broken it is, but for fun games, I'm talking about for fun games. And, if some of this makes it into competitive, that's great. But I think it's great. I could easily see some of the side missions getting brought into competitive events. Yeah, I think that's cool. All right, new randomized events. The new events, randomized events, are okay. I'm not a big fan of random events, but they did give you some new ones. There you go as well. They've reworked combat hesitation. All right, so the combat hesitation is part where they have changed it, and I think it's a lot better. It's part of the Fog of War rules, and what they're doing here is they basically said that based on the number of what round it is, you can roll, and if you make the roll, you can actually if your opponent has more activations than you, and you make the roll, you can actually force your opponent to move something else. So this actually provides a little bit of a balance for what we would call maybe activation spam armies. It's interesting. I don't know that Fog of War rules from a competitive sense are that great, but it's interesting, right? The psychology section, I think, is another pretty cool one. It's very, what's the word? This is something that I don't know that I would care for from a competitive standpoint, but if you're interested in playing a little bit more of a cinematic game, I think that unit psychology is going to be really fun. If you're like, this is unit psychology. Really, what I like about it is that it turns the game a lot more to almost like a RPG, where each of the unit, like I would love to see this and maybe combine this with a campaign rules. In other words, I think that unit psychology, where it's almost bringing to me kind of like a Darkest Dungeon feel, where you're sort of humanizing your units and what they do, and it's all based on what happens in the battlefield, whether you destroy an enemy or whether you get shaken. Additional things can happen. Anyway, I think it's a great. This can be a really good cinematic thing to do that I think could be a big blast as well. All right. The new brutal rules. Brutal rules, they've tweaked some of it. The big thing they have done that I think in here is they've added degrading profile. So there's now a chart that for big monsters, that if you want to, you can basically, as a monster takes wounds, it's going to start lowering its movement and quality. I think this is a really cool way to maybe balance out monsters. If you feel that monsters are a little too powerful, hey, maybe look at adding some degrading profiles. One of the things that I love a lot of these changes are doing, they are bringing one-page rules more closely aligned to maybe like 40K and Age of Fantasy and Age of Sigmar. Now, I think that's great because these are optional rules, right? Remember, all that I'm talking about here is just optional. It's a great way that if you want to have a 40K player, an Age of Sigmar player, hey, you now have rules that they're familiar with. Love it. All right. The new stratagems. They've added some new stratagems. I think the stratagems, I would say this. I love what they have done. They've actually balanced out some of the stratagems. Some of the stratagems were a little powerful, especially some of the shock doctrines. So I've went through some of these doctrines, and I like them. I haven't looked at them all in detail. I would say now I'm actually interested in playing these stratagems because previously I'd played one game with these stratagems and some of them were just broken. So I do like that they've balanced them. They've removed that shock doctrine double attack one and replaced it. So I've noticed they've done some balancing on the stratagems. I think they're really great. I think the stratagems are really cool. I want to try them again. Twists and gambits. All right. I think this is probably my second favorite part of the advanced rules. Twists and gambits. Twists are just twists are just another comeback mechanic, which again, I love, especially in cinematic and fun games. You want people to stay invested, right? If they're behind, give people a way to to come back. So twists are a great way to for under if you're behind in points in say progressive scoring, it's a great way to just add some bonuses and it's randomized. Yeah, twists are great. But even better, I think gambits are even better. So gambits again are really cool. They're random, but what they actually do, this is similar to I don't know if you've ever played like something like Dystopian Wars, where you get these deck of cards that have two things on them. One, a gambit has one, it either has a power, so it gives you a buff. So for instance, this thing that you roll on this table can give you a buff, or it can be a way to score. And I think that gambits, I've played it in Dystopian Wars, and it's really cool mechanic, and I love that they brought it in. That is, you can one use this. Let's gambit as a way to like as a buff your units, or you can forego the buff and you can use it as a way to score an objective. So score more points. I really want to try gambits, especially. I think that gambits are. I could actually see gambits entering into competitive play. I haven't looked at them all. I mean, I've looked at them, but I haven't like looked at them from a balance perspective. But I think the gambits. I think gambits are super cool. All right, siege battles for Age of Fantasy. Yeah, I've looked at them. They're pretty good. Nothing like jumps out to me. They have it's a way basically for you. It's like you have a defender and you have an attacker. The attacker gets like 25% more points, and the defender gets a certain number of building points. But the attacker also gets like a certain number of points so they can bring like sappers or they can bring siege towers. It's actually really cool. Love it. And then you have the boarding actions for Grimdark Future. Now this is different. And one of the things I like about boarding actions and sieges is that they are different. With boarding actions, they change some of the rules. Like, for instance, like you don't get ambush. Ambushes is flying. They tweak aircraft. Actually, aircraft. Yeah, aircraft can't be used, but they add things like hatchways. It's basically boarding actions. It's almost like playing Space Hulk. That's what it feels like. You're playing Space Hulk, really. So I love that they've added rules where you basically are playing in buildings like a Space Hulk. I could easily see us breaking out like a big Space Hulk game and playing these. Let's just say, okay, the advanced rules now, I think they're worth it. In the past, I've always said that I didn't think the advanced rules were worth it. Now I do. I would say now, the advanced rules now I think are worth the money. You know, if you don't want to be a Patreon, I would say now it's worth buying. Go buy the advanced rules. A lot of great stuff in here. I'm not going to show you or talk about anything too specific. Because that's their paid content. I want to respect that. But I think let's just say this: I've looked through them. The advanced rules are worth it. I think it's great. Yeah, I think as well. Super excited. The advanced rules. This alone for 3.4 is probably enough. I think to be a huge change. Advanced rules, a big win. All right, let's talk about some general rules updates here. There are some bigger ones. They did cover. So there's a lot going on here. Some of the rules changes are a little more so like clarifications, tightening up the rules, and some of them are pretty big. We'll get into regiments. So some of the changes, which basically say that you're now you don't actually have to. So whenever you charge a unit, you do have to be in charge range, but you don't actually have to touch a unit. So that means that if you're charging a unit on the other side of a fence, or maybe you're charging a unit that's maybe up a building on the second floor, they actually give you attacks now of 4% vertically. So they're actually just tightening up some of the rules for charges. They now just a few things like you now have to strike with all your weapons. They've tightened up melee. They've tweaked the aircraft rules so they don't fly off the board anymore. And I think that's fine. I mean, I never liked the aircraft rules, but I think these version of the rules are better. Ambush and scout. This is some pretty good changes where they've basically they've sort of nerfed both ambush and scout a little bit, because now basically if you go first on the next round, with ambush, you have to deploy first. So it gives basically the person who's going first next round a little bit of a disadvantage because now you can place the person who's going second can place their ambushers sort of to counter that. I like that. I think that's great. Scout as well has been changed. Now you actually have to place your models and then they sort of teleport up 12 inches. Now that's actually a slight nerf to ambush because you now have to place those units behind units you've set up in front of them, and you have to move them. So that, based in different ways, that could decrease the amount of move for Scout. So both of these, I think, have made some minor changes, but I think are very good. I like the tweaks to Ambush and Scout. All right, Lance, a minor thing, but yeah, I think this is fine. +1 to hit instead of +2 AP is fine. Yeah, that's fine. All right, for skirmish games, Shaken units now get +1 to wound checks, making it easier to kill them. Yeah. I think that's good. I'm not a big skirmish person. I don't know too much. All right, for regiments, huge changes to regiments, and we'll get into this as well. Regiments, units may now pivot while rush or charge actions. So what this means is in the old rules of regiments, if you ever wanted to rush or charge, you actually had to pivot first before you move. But now you get to pivot anytime during a rush or a charge move. Now I'll say this is huge. This is the reason that I've never played regiment. I played one game of the regiment rules and I dropped them. I was like, because you couldn't pivot midway, really made a very clunky game. So I really like this. The other thing they've changed with regiments is ambush. Ambush is now deployed within 6 inches of any table edge. So that is a nerf to ambush, but it's in some ways a buff because now you actually can place your ambushers behind your opponent within 6 inches. Again, it says any table edge. I think I would have preferred it if you weren't allowed to place your ambushers behind your opponent. It's a step in the right direction, but I don't know about any. I don't think that you should be able to ambush behind your opponent, but I think it's a step in the right direction. That's fine. All right. What else we got here? They've changed. So this is really great. They've modified these gangs and guilds so that they basically broken them up. It used to be that in skirmish games, and I know this, the gangs were just one big army, and they basically were broken because they had all the upgrades they could get. And so I do like that they've broken these up into 10. Great. All right. Let's get into some core rule changes. So some clarifications at first. Clarified that units can't be within 1 inch at any time, not just when charging. That's fine. Yep. This is already mentioned above that you don't have to be in base contact if you're blocked by a minor obstacle. You now have to attack with all your melee weapons. You get now the thing is you now get a vertical attack range, which I think is good. They've just clarified some things about cover, and they've also clarified cover, whether it's inside cover terrain or behind blockers. That's great. Aircraft has been reworked. I think it's better. I still don't care for aircraft, but I think it's going in the right direction. All right, we already talked about that. If both players have ambush, the player who activates first goes next. On the next round, has to place first. So that gives a slight advantage to the person going second. They've clarified fear. They've just some clarifications. Basically, this is saying you can't have flying units land on impossible terrain. You only ignore obstacles when moving. So basically, this is saying you can't have flying units land in impassable terrain. All right. Clarified how indirect works. We've already mentioned that. Clarified limited. Scout units are now placed anywhere within 12 inches after being deployed. So what you do is you deploy them. That means that if you want to place them in front of behind units, they're placed there and then they teleport 12. So it's a slight nerf to scout units. Yeah, that's fine. The player that activates next goes first in place. So they've removed the randomization now, which I like. Now, again, it's the advantage of going first with scout and ambush was always really big. Now that they've modified that, great. All right, scout, because it used to be scouting units that if you go for, it was a huge advantage if you had a scouting unit and you went first. Now you have to place your scout units first, and your opponent, if they have scout units, they can counter that. So actually, this is a good change. Really good change to scout units. I think it's good. Sniper, that's fine. This is good. Disembarking, that's just a minor change. Age of Fantasy, yeah, we've already talked about this before. Regiments, that's already been covered. All right, the Beginner's Guide. I'm not going to talk too much about the Beginner's Guide. A lot of this stuff makes sense. We'll talk about Age of Fantasy Regiments. One thing they did do is Age of Fantasy Regiments you now have a 45-degree arc, which is, so this is really bringing Age of Fantasy Regiments sort of back in line with other games that are rank and flank. They have that 45-degree line of sight. I think that's very good. All right, so that's a great change. The changes to regiments, I think, are really great. Minor changes about how heroes fit information. All right, we've already talked about the advanced rules. Let's get into some tournament guidelines. Some tweaks. They've now made that tournament list must use Force Org. I think this is a great change. Their old tournament guidelines were pretty bad. So I think this is great. Force Org is required. Mixing armies is now optional. Reinforced. So they have added some sideboard lists. I won't show this because this is paid content. So you now have an ability to bring there's basically rules where you can bring you can basically break your army up and you can have 3 different versions of a smaller part of your army that you can sort of see your opponent's army and then bring different models. It's optional. I think it's worth trying out. Sideboard lists, I'm not a huge fan of them. I think they complicate things, but it's, I think it's an optional rule. It's worth trying out. All right. They've added these fortune points mechanic. This is basically they've added a way that if you want to, you can spend points to add +1 or -1 to dice rolls. Yeah, it's fine. They've added a new hybrid true line of sight option, which I'll just say it's good. The hybrid true line of sight option is good. I like it. It's very simple where it uses the tough value to determine the height, and then it also uses true line of sight. So it uses a combination of sort of the tough value to assign a height value, as well as just true line of sight. All right, let's just get into some general army updates. I'm running through this quick. There's a lot to cover. So aura styles have been bumped up to 12 inches. Good. I think that's great. That's fine. Bombing run, only once works for its activation. Hunter, now only give +2. That used to be, I think, +3. That's good. Undead, only trigger when a unit would be shaken or routed. So there are certain rules that happen for undead morale checks that this only works like that. So there are some things like I think it's called seduce, where you can make a person make a morale check, and if they fail, you get to move them. Or there are certain damage spells, so undead doesn't automatically pass those anymore. It's good. Rework furious and flying spells. It's fine. All weapon mods now have limited. This is good. Yeah, I think this is fine that they've put limited on some of those mods. All right, point cost updates. We're going to get into these. So there's some general point cost upgrades across the board. I haven't gone into every single army specifically, but generally speaking, point costs have generally slightly gone up, slightly. There's different factors involved in that, but let's just say that. All right, rework the cost of AP. I think this is a good change. AP has gone up in price, with AP1 and AP2 going up slightly. And AP3 and AP4 going up a lot. And I think this is great. It used to be, for instance, I think the AP4 used to be at most around 2.3. Now it's up to 3.1. So AP4 has gone up a lot. AP3 has gone up a decent amount. And AP1 and 2 have gone up slightly. So I think that's good. I think it's really great. AP4 was a little too good. And I love that the AP4 has really gone up in price. So I think this is great. I think we may actually see people not bringing AP4 on everything, because now AP4's cost is pretty prohibitive. All right. They've reworked the cost of Blast and Deadly. I think this is good too. Blast was, they've now reworked Blast. So they are so Blast used to just be better than Deadly, because with Blast, you got you get to ignore cover. And in the old point system, you never took that. So now they've actually one thing they've lowered the cost of blast and deadly slightly, but also they've added the ignores cover cost, which is now a thing. They've added that to blast. So now blast costs a little more than deadly. But like I said, it's just a minor, and it's mainly blast towards the higher end of it. So yeah, for instance, I think like it's blast and deadly, like 6 and 12 have gone up, have been slightly reduced in points here. So pretty good. Yeah, I think that's overall some good changes, and it's really only affecting sort of those deadly. I think it's like 6 or 9 or 12 or something, and I think that's good. Deadly is now a little less. Well, so deadly remain the same. Blast is a little more expensive. All right, casters. This is a big one. What they have done is based on the spell lists you have. They are calculating what's in your spell list, and they are saying, okay, based on your spell list, your caster are going to cost a certain amount per level. So what that means here is I'll go look. So for instance, like it's not a big change, but some armies got slightly increased points. So for instance, Alien Hives, their caster 3, I'll just go to the Hive Lord, is now 55 points. Because that's based, so 55 points for their caster, and that's based on their spells. I don't know about it, because I think their spells are pretty crazy, but that's just, they've put it in line with everything else, and that's fine. I don't think luckily it's not a big change. Generally, you're going to see some armies that have 5 points less in spells. Some people are going to have 5 to 10 points more in spells. So, like Battle Brothers, I think Battle Brothers are actually 65 points, I believe, for Caster 3. Yeah, 65. Probably due to this. AP3. Wow, AP3 now for Time Passage. So they've actually modified some of the spells. I'll actually need to go into some of the spells and look into them. Time Passage is actually AP3 now, so I'll need to go into the spells and look at that. So that's something to keep in mind. They've reworked the cost of poison, so poison has actually gone up a lot in points. Poison used to just be a flat 10% increased points for the weapon. Now, what they are doing is they've broken up the ignores regeneration rules as a separate rule for 10%. And then they've actually made poison, they've added the 10%, and they've also added, basically adding +1 AP. So they grab the weapon cost and they add 1 AP extra, and then they half the cost of it. All right, that's calculations there. Basically, poison is now costing correctly. That if a weapon doesn't have any AP on it, it's significantly less. But if it does have a lot of AP, poison can get very expensive. But poison is going to cost more. Sniper is actually less points. Ignores cover is slightly less points. That ignore regen. Yeah, so ignoring regen used to be about an 8% increase. It's now at 10%. So we're also going to see the cost of rending go up because rending went up by about 2%. So that's significant. Bounding has slightly gone up. Self-repair and similar rules have gone up in price. The cost logic undead is a little more complicated. I need to really dig into the differences in the cost of undead, but depending on the unit of the lower quality, undead is slightly more expensive for higher quality units, I should say. All right. Yes, I generally like the point increases. I think poison may be a little expensive. I could be wrong on that. Poison does feel a little expensive, but then again, it's only because it's significantly more expensive. So I don't know. Poison, we'll have to play it. I would say this poison is definitely a big point change. Something to keep in mind. All right. The other thing is that also magma has also. So one of the things they've done in general, and I'm not going to spend too much time because I could go on and on about formulas, but basically they've taken a lot of their static point cost changes. For instance, something like magma. Magma used to just be a 33% increase. And what they've done is they've broken magma and they've just given it the point increases for radiation, which is about 16%, and they've given the point increases for ignores regen, which is about 10%. So that's 26%. So things like, and I like it, a lot of the point costs are now a lot more dynamic, and that's good. Let's just say in general, point costs, good. I like them. I like them all. Maybe one, I'll talk about one in particular that I think maybe needing to look at. All right. Let's just get into Alien Hives. They have a Synapse Tyrant. I'm not going to spend too much time on the armies. Yeah. Spores now have no retreat. I think this was last time, but that's fine to keep it in. So Spores no longer auto pass. They just have no retreat. They've actually, this is something to note, is that they've actually, for Battle Brothers and Sisters and a few others, like Dark Elf Raiders, they've actually pulled out their veteran infantry upgrades. So you can see the old rules, Battle Brothers used to have a veteran infantry. So that's gone, and now they have a veteran Battle Brothers, which hit on two. So they have a +1, and they have just, different upgrades. I don't know if I care for this that much, but it is there. So there you go. I don't know that I like it, but it's there, and that's in for Blessed Sisters. I think it hurts Blessed Sisters and Dark Elf Raiders more because honestly, Battle Brothers, 50 points was always too expensive. I think they also added a veteran. I don't know that I care too much about it, but they did add a veteran, a veteran Master Brother, who just comes with this and comes with it. He's basically the same unit, but just with a veteran upgrade. I don't know. It seems, I don't know why they just didn't make this an upgrade, but they did it that way. And that's fine. I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's not a big deal. Spotting lasers, just this minor rule change that I think everyone played anyway. The Gangs of New Eden is probably the most significant change where they broke this up. The Havoc Brothers, they've added the veterans, made some changes. War Disciples were already casters last time. They've added some upgrades. That's fine. Jet Bike Strikers have Impact 1. Yeah, it's fine. They did add, so Human Defense Force, we do know those are the new army, and they've added in some new units. Let's go look at those units real fast in Human Defense Force. So what do they have here? They have a Grunt robots and then some walkers. All right, let's look at the Grunt robots. Here it is. Okay. The Grunt robots are 5 of them. 80 points, good shot, and robot. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're okay. That's fine. That's probably pretty good. Grunt robots are okay. All right, they then have a walker. Okay, here we are, the walkers. So they've got a tactical walker. This is a tough 12 walker. He's got he's tough 12, but he's only hitting with 9, and you can give him an extra... Oh, wow. Can he not... So the first thing I would say is this guy can't hit at his tough value. I don't know about that. So the Tactical Walker doesn't seem that great in that he's not even getting up to tough 12 in shooting. So I don't know about the Tactical Walker. He's not that good. Combat Walker has Furious. So he's tough 12, but he has 8 attacks. So he's attacking below, and he's a hybrid unit. Yeah, this guy isn't good either. Combat Walker's not good. And then the Tactical Titan is a tough 18. He's got a stomp. So he's a pure shooter. Sorry about that. Let's go to the tough 18. He attacks for 12. Can this guy actually attack up to 18 or beyond that? It doesn't look that good. Yeah, this isn't a good. Yeah, neither of these are good. Yeah, I don't like any of them. Okay, sorry about that. But the walkers suck. All right. Added +1 defense on the cavalry is fine. Company leader with sappers. I think the sappers are just the same as the specialists, right? With just relentless. Yeah, they're just relentless. All right, the same thing. All right. This was last time. I'm not going to worry about that one. Prime Brothers now have the veterans. That's fine. Rebel Guerrillas, burst pistols? Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Worm holding. Okay, this is a big change. Probably, this is probably the one thing that I. Okay, the Daemon rule has now changed. Daemons can now only deploy up to half of their units using scout or ambush. Now, this is a huge change. It used to be, as you know, Daemons, every one of them could either do scouting or ambush. But now you have a Daemon army, but only half, they can still choose scout or ambush, but only half of them get to do it. So this, I would say one thing. I do like this change to the Daemon special rule. I've complained about this rule in the past, that it's not a good rule. I would say this. I like this change, but I have looked at the point costs, and the Daemon rule it's about a 20%. It's basically the cost of ambush plus 20%, and that's a little pricey. I haven't looked at the Daemon codexes in particular, but I would say if you're going to make their rule half as effective, maybe they may need to reduce the points on some of those Daemons. I don't know, because I know, like I said, this model may deploy it as if it had scout or ambush. Pick one, but only up to half the unit. So I would say they may need to relook at the cost of Daemon, or maybe not. I need to just spend some time and look into this as well. It may be fine. It's just something to keep on the radar that the Daemon rule could be a little pricey. All right. Age of Fantasy got Rune Anvils, I think, for dwarves. Actually, is a plus one. I looked at this. This is a plus one caster, right? Is this what this is? This is actually pretty cool that I think that dwarves get now a plus one caster. Is that what it is? I think that's what it is. That's actually pretty cool because that means dwarves can actually get caster 3. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't mind that. I don't. Yeah, it's fine. It's it's fine. All right. Helicopters now have crew melee attacks. Ghostly Undead Ancient Banshee doesn't have ambush anymore. That's great. Goblins have a Shaman Circle. Is this like a caster? This is probably some sort of caster upgrade here. Let's go look at that. Goblins have a caster circle. Where's that at? Shaman Circle. Magic Circle. Yeah, this is the caster upgrade there. That's fine. I think it's yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't mind that. All right. That's good. Some of the stuff I won't go into. Havoc Warriors. Barbarians can now get spears. That's pretty good. Champions can now get a surgeon. Oh wow. So Human Empire can now get a regen upgrade, which is great. Mummified Undead. So there's some different mount options they're doing. It's fine. They've lowered the attacks on the garden statues. It's fine. Orcs. They get a wild brute boss. And let's go look at that real fast. And they've had a shaman with scary spells. Look at this wild. Orcs were a little weaker army. Let's look at orcs real fast and see what that looks like. Orcs are wild brute boss. What's this thing? Is this it? What is it called? It's called a wild wild brute orcs. Okay, wild brute orcs. Here they are. Frenzy. Oh, they're frenzy. Okay, so brute orcs and wild, a little one less defense, and they get frenzy and scout and strider. Oh wow, these guys are good. Oh my goodness, what on earth? So I don't know why you're giving them AP4 and frenzy. That's a bad one. I guess you would automatically switch them to great weapons because they're having frenzy wasted on them with an AP4. This should probably be tweaked. Why are you giving them AP4 with frenzy? So that should be tweaked, but they're a strider unit. That's pretty good. Orcs were pretty weak, so I do like that they get. That's a really good unit. I think you always bring them with great weapons. And I do suggest that they tweak that. AP4 with frenzy shouldn't be a combination. All right, but pretty good. Black orcs can get spears. That's pretty good. All right, so it looks like they actually did do some upgrades to orcs that I think are good. Some buffs. Battle masters, just some mounts. It looks like a flamer mount. Fixed upgrade lists. Okay, just some fixes here. They updated some bonuses. Yeah, that's fine. Rift Demons, we already talked about that. That big change is happening to demons. Saurians, Shadow Stalkers, Vampiric Undead, Ghoul Beast Riders. So there's a Ghoul Beast Rider for Vampiric Undead. Let's go look at that real fast. Vampiric Undead have Ghoul Beast Riders. What do these things do? They are Ghoul Beast Riders. 120 points, Def 4, Flying, Impact 2. That's pretty good, yeah. So they have 2 attacks on a 2-up and 1 attack at Lance on a 3-up. Yeah, and they actually get Sergeants as well. Look at that one. That's pretty good. Wait, did I see that Ghouls also get... Ghouls can also get command groups. Whoa! That is a big change. Look at that. Now, that's a huge change because remember, command groups is a big deal because you get this banner here. No, that's a huge deal, actually. I think that makes ghouls a lot better, and you can actually bring them with rending. I think I'd prefer them with heavy hand weapons. You have to trade it out for that poison. Yeah, that's really good. No, that's really good. Ghouls are really solid now. All right. I guess that's a caster option. They've added new units. Beetles. Let's look at these real fast. Beetle swarms and Eternal Guard. Okay, let's just go to the Wood Elves and let's look at some of these new units. So they've added Beetle swarms. Let's see. This is with the new model ranges coming in. What did they give them? They gave them Beetle swarms. Where are those at? Beetle swarms. Here, 50 points. Oh, it's nice. Quality 6. This is Scout Strider Tough 3. So that's pretty good. That's a very solid unit for 50 points. That's great for them. Eternal Guardian and Giant Beetle. So what's the... did they have Giant Owls too? Is that it? Great Owl. I guess those are there already. Are those just named differently? I think these are just eagles that they've changed. Oh, Eternal Guardian is now a tough 6 with malice. That's -1 to hit. He's got a blast hammer. This is a really solid guy. He's hitting very good. Very good. This is a really good unit. He's got then you have a Great Owl Chimera and a Forest Agent. Great Chimera. He's flying. He's tough 18. That's pretty nasty. He's got 18 attacks. Yeah, he's good. It's good. Regeneration too. How about that? And then you have a Forest Ancient. This is a 2/2. Oh, so they get a 2/2. A Caster 4. Oh, wow. What does he come with? He's got a 2 AP1 attacks I hate. He's got Flying, which I hate. He's got Regen. What is this? Oh, have they moved? They've tweaked him. Wait, what? Oh, okay. The level 1 should be up here. So the -1 in melee is good. The Flying is... They already have Strider. I don't know if Flying is really great for them. And they do get Regrowth. Yeah, I think Caster 4, he's fine. He's really good. All right, some new units. All right, so... Whew, that is a lot to cover. We've covered a lot, but let's just say a lot of good things. A lot of good things as well. So, go check out 3.4. A lot of good things happening. Thanks so much.